Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar on mastering the art of saying no. This is definitely a concept that is very difficult for many RPCVs. We're people pleasers, we want to help, all of that. And so many people struggle with how to effectively and professionally say no without feeling guilty or bad or whatever. So we're going to spend some time talking about this, and we're going to actually have it be a pretty interactive session, and there's going to be role plays involved. So one of the things that I want people to think about right up front is an example, those who are participating in the actual recording of this session, to think about an example or more than one example of a time that you said yes, but you regretted it. You really didn't want to say yes, but you said yes for whatever reason. And we'll be talking all about those reasons, but we'll actually give you a chance to practice saying no, like rewinding. If you could go back today and rewind, how could you say no right now? So it should be, I think, a fun session, and I'm always open to your feedback. I definitely want to make sure that my sound is coming out clear. We've had a little bit of issues with some of the routers, so hopefully it's sounding clear and will remain clear. But if not, clearly let me know. Okay, so let's go ahead. So I want to first ask folks, what are some of the things that you struggle with saying no to? There's probably lots of things, right? What kinds of things do you especially struggle with saying no to? And if you could just dump your thoughts into the chat box, that's great. And we'll just review some of those. And then I have some additional items as well. Good one, extra projects. Yes. So, you have your scope of work perhaps, and you're very busy. You have a lot to fill, your time. And then you're asked about additional, extra projects, right? So, that can be very difficult because you might feel guilty, but also you might want the experience, right? Like, this is a great experience. I don't want to, forego it, but I have a, full plate. So absolutely. And Jodi, thank you for sharing. People you like, yes, that ask you for help, right? It's always hardest to say no to people that you really like and respect and don't want to disappoint, right? Maybe they've helped you in the past and you don't want to disappoint them now, that kind of thing. So absolutely, there's many things. What else? If there's anything else coming in here, I know for me, I'm a yes person. I mean, I'm kind of I have, worked with myself as well in terms of being a people pleaser. Like, I want to please people. I want to help. I truly want to, help in whatever way. And that's many RPCVs, right? Most of RPCVs, I would say, want to help. And that's why they're doing extra things or they're going above and beyond, but they do need to set those limits that are healthy for themselves, which we'll talk about as well. Yes. So another thing to struggle with saying no to, not providing clear enough boundaries. Absolutely. And it's hard. It's hard to do those boundaries for a lot of reasons, which we will be talking about as well, and how we can maybe deal with that. So great. So let's go on and just look at, some of the things. These are some of the additional things, and you've already hit on some of them, right? So expectations of loved ones or people you like a lot, as you shared, right? That's harder to say no to, obviously. Requests from friends goes along with the same thing, right? Work requests, right, from your boss. I mean, this is your boss. They're asking you to do something. You're supposed to say yes, right? Well, yes, to a degree, but when you get to when it gets to a certain point where you have too much on your plate, you're not going to be able to do a good job if you keep all of that up. So we'll talk about that later as well. And then opportunities. These are the things that oftentimes are they're wow, plan the holiday party with this group that I'm part of. That would be fun. That would be enjoyable, or whatever maybe makes you, it would be a great experience, or, an opportunity, just something that would be enjoyable, but it's maybe still putting you over the top. And then your, career opportunities, right? So jobs, right? And I see this a lot in people when, they're doing a job search and they know the kind of job they want. They're applying for many jobs to have backups. And maybe maybe their job, their first priority hasn't come through yet, but they get an offer from a second priority. I don't know if that's happened to any of you, but that's really hard. they need to know beforehand, maybe, right? How do you respond? You want a job, you need a job, you want the other one more, but that's a hard thing to negotiate. We can maybe do a little role play around that as well. But you have to, you have to address that. That's how it happens in life. The timeline's not always, perfect, right? So, and then special leadership opportunities are, oftentimes, things that, in your organization, maybe they have a certain group that's like a leadership development. We used to have one of those organization or training that was available for people. And it was a lot of work to take on, but it was a really neat experience. But, if you're totally tapped as you are, you may not have time to do that, but you have a hard time saying no to things like that. So, why is it difficult? Right. And, certainly the number one, you feel guilty or you don't want to let people down, right? That's a huge one. So, but there's a lot of other reasons, right? We've already kind of touched on some of them, that fear of missed opportunity. Oh, this would be great for me, for my resume, for my experience, what I'm moving into. It also, though, could be fear of repercussions. Ooh, what if I say no to my boss and then he doesn't respect me as much, or he doesn't give me as many other opportunities? Or repercussions, oh, that team won't, include me in the future on this, that, or it will negatively impact my career. People have a lot of fears when they say yes instead of no, when they feel like they need to say no, but they say yes, right? People pleaser. Yeah, you are always thinking about other people and wanting to make sure that everyone's happy and that they're, not disappointed, all of that kind of thing. But you also need to put yourself first. And so doing that work, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well, like saying yes to yourself when you say no to other opportunities is really key. Difficulty setting boundaries, like, Karen has said, setting or maybe just sharing the boundaries and making it clear what your boundaries are and what you're capable of doing and what you can't do, right? And sometimes when you take on a lot of extra things and then you suddenly start setting boundaries, it's kind of hard. Because the person's like, what do you mean? This is usually somebody who always steps up or agrees to step up if I ask. And suddenly they're saying no. So it can be even more difficult, right? And then, the natural desire to help that really goes with, just that wanting to make a difference, wanting to help people, any other things. Why is saying no for you difficult sometimes? Are there anything other than what we've talked about here that you might want to share? Okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, I think we covered a lot, Hannah. Thanks. I think we did cover most of the areas, but not sure who else will help them. Jodi, that's a great one. And that's such a Peace Corps, right? It's like, well, if I don't do it, who will help them? And they need help. They really need. So it's worrying about them that you're putting them ahead of your needs, right? Which is not always a good thing. You want to obviously, if you can take it on and help them, great. But if you're so taxed, if you're struggling with anxiety or whatever in your life right now, maybe partly as a result of being overtapped, you need to create those boundaries to get healthy and all of that. So great. Saying no can redefine the relationship. That's a really good one, Karen. It can, how they respond to it is their issue, right? You need to do what you need to do for yourself and what you can take on and not take on and all of that, and be professional with it. You can certainly let them know that you'd love to help in the future, but right now you have XYZ, some projects and such that you can't really fit that in. But sometimes it does change the dynamics. They're disappointed and and that you can't change their, reaction. I think the only thing you can do is explain a little bit, like I said, give a professional reason that, you really are in support of what they're doing and you love that they're doing that. Unfortunately, you're not able to be the person to step in at this point because of XYZ, right? So that's all you can do though. Yeah. So, okay. So why is it important to be able to say no, right? And I love this graphic. Before you say yes to others, make sure that you're not saying no to yourself, right? And that's I think a very important, an important reminder, right? And that saying, if you keep saying yes to others and in essence, no to yourself, you're denying yourself what you need. Maybe it's rest, or maybe it's downtime, maybe it's whatever it is, just like time to feel rejuvenated, right? time for things like maybe it's yoga for you, maybe it's running, maybe it's whatever that really help you stay healthy. And so, your health can really depend on, if you keep saying yes and you just never say no, you can really, it increases your likelihood of experiencing health issues, right? Those could range from burnout to depression to anxiety, lots of different things, right? Yeah. And being stressed, that can cause, a lot of issues. So, uh, and then it can also, though, and I want people to really think about and recognize this as well. It's not just that, you might, get, overtaxed and all of that. But if you say yes too often, right, you're never saying no, and you're taking on a lot of additional projects. Let's face it, we are not superhumans. We can only do a certain amount. And even if you're extremely productive, if you keep taking on the tasks without saying no, you're setting yourself up for your credibility to be, lowered, because people, if you can't do everything as well as what your normal standards are, then people are like, oh, okay, I thought she'd do a better job at that, or I was expecting this or that. So it can really, if you're overtaxed, it can really have ramifications that can impact even your career, right? If it's from your boss or from coworkers where you're not maybe seen as much as that leader, and that, so you want to be careful about, how you taking on what you can and what you want to, and being able to say no to the things that, you really don't want to, or just can't. It's not that you don't want to, right? Um, so yeah, so it's definitely, like I said, it's saying yes to yourself. So all of these things are important. So it's making yourself a priority when you say no, right? Which, I love this little note to self. It's okay to say no. It's like, I mean, it's simple, and yet it's so important, right? And we forget about that. It allows you to set your own boundaries. And Karen, you were talking earlier a little, in your chat comment, about that whole boundaries and stuff. You need to set healthy boundaries, and boundaries that you're able to stick to, and you're able and not come across as just being very rigid and not a team player. So that's what people fear, is if they say no, that they'll come across as like they don't want to help, and that they're not a team player and all those things. So, um, and it enables you to really make your decisions from a place of abundance, right? Rather than fear. So instead of being worried about, oh, they're going to, they're going to think less of me if I don't take this on. If you're when you're saying yes to yourself, you're coming from this place of abundance where, okay, I know what my boundaries are, I know what my limits are, I know what I can and can't do successfully, and I want to help. Sure, I want to help everywhere, and it's not possible. So I will, do what I can and go from there. So absolutely. And then I like this little graphic that just has some of the, 9 healthy ways to say no, right? And there's more if you Google online how to say no, right? There's lots of different ones. But in some cases it might be, maybe it's, sometimes you even say yes initially, and then you really realize you can't do it, or something has come up, whatever, and you no longer can be on that committee, or what have you. To be able to say, I'm so sorry, something has come up and I won't be able to, continue in this. However, I'm really supportive of the mission and would love to help in other ways as they come available, later on, whatever. You can do something like that, right? No, just a simple no, you could say, right? I need to focus on myself right now is one way to say it. You can massage these a little, right? To make them like I just was kind of doing with that first one, right? But yes, I need to focus on myself right now. I have a lot on my plate, and at a future time, I may be able to consider helping, but right now is just not the time I'm able to step up in that way, whatever it is. I can recommend somebody to help you. Sometimes you can't help, but maybe there's somebody that that's been looking for an opportunity like this. And maybe it's a fellow RPCV, and you're on some regional group or whatever, and one of the affiliate groups, and you might be able to say, I can recommend somebody else who might be interested. You don't want to commit them, but might be interested, and then see if they're interested. So I know that you'll do a great job, yourself. I wouldn't say that one just in and of itself. I wouldn't say, oh, thanks, but I know you'll do a great job yourself. I would probably cushion that. I would do that a little more, couch that a little more in the, thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm honored by that. Unfortunately, I do have too much on my plate in here, but you're such an expert, or you have a really good take on that. I'm sure you'll do a great job, on that as well. something like that. Yeah, I might like make it a little bigger. So, not available, right now, but maybe sometime later, or, there's just not, I'm not comfortable with that. There's just different ways to say it. Right. Um, I guess what I want to say here, and I want to talk a little bit about like how to say no, and then we're going to do the role plays, right? And I know, Karen, I know that you need to go in about 5-7 minutes. So maybe after this slide, if you are interested in trying to role play, an example, maybe something you wished you would have said no to, but you said yes to, I'm happy to take yours now, and then we can go on and do more later on as well. Does that sound good? Okay, great. So ways to say no, right? Many ways to say no, but it's really that establishing clear boundaries, which we've already, talked about a little bit, right? Your working hours, that kind of thing. Trust your instinct. If your gut is telling you, I so don't want to take this on, don't let yourself get like, signed up for that. Please honor your own discomfort and your own, like your gut doesn't lie, right? It's in your instinct. I just really, I can't emphasize that enough, because I do see people take that as well in jobs, even where, maybe they have a job that comes available. It's not what they're interested in doing, but they're like, well, I don't know if this other one's going to come through, so I'm going to take this. And, while there's certainly a time and place to take the first job that comes, if you are desperate and need to pay this month's rent and are in a place of, where you absolutely need security, job security in anything while you continue your search, then maybe yes. But if that's not the case, to take a job that you in your instinct, in your gut are like, I don't know about this. I mean, that's oftentimes we're asking for disaster, because it might backfire on you, right? And not be what you really want to be doing. So, okay. So don't feel pressured to decide on the spot. Take your time. Say, thank you for that opportunity. Let me think about that. Give me today. Let me think about that, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. I need to look at some other projects and see if I can manage to maybe work out something to allow some time for this. So you don't have to come out with that yes right away. That can sometimes allow you to feel do know easier. So and waiting, yeah, like maybe they ask you in an environment where you're out for drinks and a happy hour or something, right? A team happy hour with your work team or what have you. And they ask you there, and it's of course really hard to say no. There's other people around, all of that. You might say, hey, can we, thank you so much for thinking of me. I really appreciate that. Can we reconnect on this, say tomorrow afternoon at 3? I need to, or whatever. You can put that off. Okay. And yeah, and then the last one that really is showing us 2 bullets is really sandwiching your no between 2 yeses. So when you say no, you don't have to say no to the person. It's saying no to the task or the opportunity. You're still saying yes to the person. You could say something that is, wow, this is a great project. I'm really honored. Like where you're saying yes to, this is what you're proposing is really great. I can't do it, unfortunately, because of da 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 da. And then, maybe, in the future, I would love to be considered for opportunities if they arise, that kind of thing. So you're saying yes and no together. That makes sense. So, hey, I want to go ahead. Let's go ahead and have you do Karen, a role play here really quickly. Start, because I know you do have to go early. So think of a time you said no, and I'm sure you've done this already, Karen. You can unmute yourself and just share with us what was the situation. What did you say yes to that you didn't want to say yes to? And then we'll go and we'll rewind and I want to hear how you said yes, and then we can rewind and do some we can try to say no. So great.
Okay, thank you for letting me some time. And I'm right now in clinic, and that's my work. And the example that I have is regarding a patient who had a request, and our department just does not do it. And it's an institutional protocol in addressing that concern. But I coach them on the documentation needed to help them achieve that goal. But
great.
It sometimes gets misconstrued, where the documentation that I write, it legally is not my role. And it gets repeated requests to revise what I can document which is still outside my role. So it redefines the caregiving relationship in a clinical setting where the student might think, I have a student population, might think X, Y, and Z. So the question is, how do you lovingly, in a caregiving role, share what your responsibilities are and ramifications, that it's heard, not in a stern way,
Right.
but it doesn't get pushed beyond
Right.
which that stern way should have achieved in the first place.
Right. No, I got it. So I have a question for you with, do you feel like additional people have come to you because they've heard that Susie Smith is so happy with how you did that for her, you helped her? Is this the issue, that there's other people, or is it just to like, if it were to happen again?
So medicine is very gray, and they're in this particular scenario, they didn't have any supporting documentation whatsoever, versus the other person had all the supporting documentation. And again, still the same protocol of referrals needing to be attended to, that documentation supplementing it. The first person who was upset didn't have any of that.
Right. Okay. So if you were to rewind now and try to say no instead of yes, how would you do that? What would you say?
I love to be helpful and to continue to support what you need. But this is the set protocol, and I can't do more than that protocol. That is not my legal ability to do so. So you will do this X, Y, Z, and come back when you've done X, Y, Z.
Nice.
If people ask me about X, Y, Z, I still can't say anything about it, especially if it has not been done.
Right. Well, I don't know about the rest of you. I put in the chat box how that sounded for you. I thought that sounded pretty good. I mean, I think the one thing that what's on your side is when somebody says, I'm legally not allowed to, it's legally out of the scope of our work. So I'm not allowed to do that for you. And then if you do have any like advice or guidance, maybe you have a like handout, or maybe it's just like this, how, this is, maybe it's not a handout. Maybe you just say, what you would need to do is research XYZ and and, but I can tell you that you need to do that, but I unfortunately cannot do that. It's not in the legal terms of what we're able to do. We have limitations. You have limitations. You're a medical professional, but any employee, right? We all have legal, when I work with clients, there's things that I can do and things that I can't do. And, if there's a request that comes in for something that's outside that scope, you have to, be able to say, hey, while I would love to help in this, I really want to see you achieve this. I unfortunately can't do XYZ because it's outside of the scope of, and we're not allowed to do that. Right. I mean, that's, I think, a little bit easier when you have that legal, like, you're not allowed, you're not supposed to do it. Now, you did it maybe once or whatever, but you're not supposed to, or you've been told, you've learned from that experience. Right. So, yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah.
The tricky part is that it doesn't land that way, where then the patient's like, well, you didn't help me. It's like, the protocol I can't change.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and then it's reflecting it back to them to say, and while I would love to be able to do this, this is not something that I can do in my role as a nurse practitioner. We have rules and whatnot, but I can refer you to, maybe there's a website that has stuff on how to do this, how to make a case for, I don't know what the example is, but how to make a case for yourself in the medical setting. I can almost guarantee you, if they Google that, right, they're going to find, how do you do this? How do you overturn this kind of a diagnosis or whatever it is?
Right.
So, yeah. So, and I know you have to go. So whenever you need to go, if you have other questions, please ask them now, or if you have other comments, or if anyone else has a comment on what Karen has shared and been brave to do as the role player here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Awesome. Let's see here. Okay. Well, if people don't have any other comments on that one, what I'm going to do is ask for another volunteer to do, if you can share with us, take yourself off of mute and maybe share an example of a time that you said yes and you really wanted to say no. And we'll try to do that same rewind. And how did that feel? And okay, what if you changed it to this, and see how that goes. So if anyone else would like to go, yes. Oh, are you taking off, Karen? Thank you. Oh, you're on mute, but thank you so much. Okay. Bye-bye. All right. Let's see here if there's anything in the chat box. Hannah, do you have an example maybe that you would want to share?
I personally have never been in that situation yet.
Okay.
About saying yes and regretting it, or having some mixed feelings about it. Right. I have not. Okay. But I am a yes person. Yes.
Yes. Well, and Hannah is our intern, and she's amazing and doing a great job with us here at NPCA. But so Hannah, let me rephrase that for a moment and see if this by chance, have you ever taken on additional work outside your scope of work, for example, in an internship or in something like that, where you've already had a full plate, but you've still taken on more?
I mean, perhaps nothing is coming to mind. I've never felt overwhelmed by saying an extra yes. Like I have said extra yeses, like, oh yes, I can help you on this project. Oh yes, I can do this extra thing. Sure. But I've never felt overwhelmed. Like I've always
that's great. I mean, that's an awesome response. That's awesome if you haven't felt that. And have you ever said no? You said you're a yes person. Have you ever said no?
I have not. I've said no to like friends for like small things, but like, no, I can't give you a ride. I have to go to work or something. But like, it made sense. It had a good like reason behind it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, hey, I can almost guarantee you will get into this situation, especially as a yes person, somebody who truly, I know from experience because you work with us. You want to help in any way possible. You're not afraid of taking on new things, even if you don't have the skill set yet. It's like, okay, I'll try it. I'll do it. And I mean, that's why you're such a great, you're a great employee, right? And with that, you most likely will get more and more people who are like, hey, let's have Hannah do this. Let's ask Hannah. So you'll probably have that situation, you're early on in your working career, and you probably will have that. So, yeah, but I'm thrilled that you haven't yet. So that's okay. So, all right. Let's see. I'm wondering, Jodi, if you're interested in, there's another Jodi on this, not just me. I'm not talking to myself, but I will certainly share an example as well. But Jodi, yay. Are you willing to share an example of a time that you said yes and maybe really needed to for your own health and well-being and whatnot, say no? Yeah.
A couple of just small examples, but sometimes my clients will ask me to do things that aren't really in the scope of what I do, and somehow I end up doing them. I still charge them, which is okay, but it's not necessarily what I want to be doing. Right. So trying to figure out how to say no to that a little bit.
Yep. Well, good that you said you've charged them, because a lot of people don't even charge them when it's not in the scope. They end up doing all this extra work and not charging them. So kudos to you for at least doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just like on a personal level, like a mom called me last year and was like, will you be room mom with me? And I was like, like I hate being room mom. Like I've done my time as room mom.
Oh, in the classroom for those that don't have kids, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to be room mom, but I said yes.
Yep.
I just
because you felt bad, right?
Yeah.
That's hard. It's and that brings up, I think, another, sometimes you feel judged if you're going to say, no, I don't want to be room mom. This other room mom who's saying, hey, I want to split the work with you. In essence, I want to work with you. It's like you worry probably that they'll feel bad about you, or, oh, they need a room mom. If nobody else will step up. I mean, Yeah, those are two really good ones. Yeah, absolutely. So which of those would you like to maybe role play? Like if you were to rewind, and did you say yes, by the way, to the room mom?
I did, and I survived, but
Yeah.
it wasn't too bad. She did most of the work, I have to say.
Then you're lucky. That's good. That's good, because that's no small feat. So which of those would you want to maybe do a role play on?
I was thinking about the room mom one.
Yeah.
Where I could say, thanks for thinking of me. I have a lot on my plate right now. Maybe again, because I can't say no, I would say, well, maybe I can reach out to another mom and see if she would do it.
Yeah. That all sounds good, right? Absolutely. And even sharing that you've been room mom, and she may know this or not know this, but to work that in, gosh, right now I've actually served as room mom for some time, and I've really enjoyed it. Right now I have just too much on my plate. Let me try to see if I can put the word out to some other moms who maybe haven't had that opportunity yet. And like then it's I don't know, then you're trying to solve the problem, you're trying to help, you're not just saying no.
Right.
You're not certainly not saying no to the person or to the opportunity. I mean, well, the opportunity you are, but to the person or the value of the opportunity, and the need. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's so much easier to do it though when you back up and you're like, oh, this is what I wish I would have said. Right.
Right.
But the goal is, of course, practicing those. And then the next time it does come up, oh gosh, thanks. Well, I've so enjoyed working with you this last year as room mom. At this point, I'm just not in a position where I can continue that, commitment. I really need to step back and help in some other ways that might be more periodic or whatever.
Okay. I like that.
I mean, it's not saying that you're not a team player and you don't want to work. So yeah, absolutely. Great. And Hannah's asking, what does room mom entail? And Hannah, because you are not a parent yet, you are not expected to know this yet, but room mom would be, well, actually, Jodi, you explain what room mom is. You're the one most.
I mean, it depends on the grade, and a lot of times it's not that much, but it's like communicating with the teacher, and then the teacher has like needs, like, oh, we're going to do a Valentine's party. Can a bunch of parents bring in cookies and napkins and plates? And then you either create a sign-up genius and have people do it, or you just do it yourself. And it's just a lot of like little tiny tasks that are kind of tedious, and
staff appreciation lunches, all of those kinds of things. Yeah, no, absolutely. And then these are all things that we did, when COVID wasn't, in the situation. All these, at least for us, have been kind of nixed due to COVID. So it's been a lot easier to be a room mom during COVID. But yes, thank you. So great. So that's, I mean, really what I ask people to do is, think about and kind of make a list of, many different ways that you've said no. I mean, you've said yes, and then make a list too of times that you have said no, and really like honor and recognize the times that you've done that and be like, wow, I said no. Yes. Like celebrate that. Like that is a real, that's not an honor, but it's something that you need to be proud of, because it is hard to say no. And especially for some people. Right. So it's tough, but yeah. Other questions in general, about, and I have some role plays here that we can do a few of these if we want as well, or many of them. But any questions in general about networking at this point before we, go into some more of these case studies, if you will, right?
I mean, I liked the other example Jodi brought up about saying no to something you really don't want to do, but they still asked you. Like it doesn't seem desirable of a task to, like, I guess it is similar to the room mom thing, but like I was thinking of it like in a professional, like if your boss offers you a project and it's like, oh, I don't see that I could get any experience. I don't see how I could contribute. I can't, like, it's not really up my alley. Like, how would you say no to that?
Yeah, that's a really good one. And you've said some of it, I think what you've said, that, in the beginning of what you said, it's not really up my alley. I would probably nix that part, only because that's more slangish kind of, and trying to keep it. I might instead say, wow, well, thank you for thinking of me with this. and if you don't know what it even handles or it entails, you might say, what, can you tell me a little more about what that entails? Or maybe, offhand right away, and you say, thank you. It's an honor to be asked to serve in this role. I'm not sure that's the best fit for me, given my whatever skills and my current purview or my current whatever of tasks. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think I have the bandwidth to step up in that capacity, but I would be happy to consider other ones, if there are other things at a future date or something, what I mean? Just to say, I don't think I'm the person. I might, if it were me and it were my boss coming to me, I might say, gosh, this sounds, like an important, working group and whatnot. I'm not sure it's the best, fit for me, given my current workload and my limitations with working, whatever, part-time, 3/4 time, whatever. And you might even be able to say from that, like, I'd love to help you find somebody, or is there some, or what I really wanted to say was, is this a task that you've put out for other, or is this an opportunity? You could even push it like that. Is this an opportunity that you've shared with other people and they've already said you don't have anyone to do it? So you're at a situation where you're like, you really need to have it done and there's nobody that's stepping up. Or could you check with some other folks who might have, more, experience in, or bandwidth or whatever, like, you could do that if you wanted to, kind of get an idea, because you don't want to take on everything your boss asks. I mean, if you don't have the bandwidth, right? So, but there might be, some things that, somebody else could easily take that on, and, you don't have to be the yes person all the time. So
in this circumstance, I've also tried to offer to coach someone else on her team to do some of the tasks. That maybe it would be more like cost effective and in the long term to have someone internally work on the project versus using me as an external resource.
Oh, that's great. And I assume you probably work as a consultant. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because you could spend a little bit of your time, with coaching them, and then they could be doing the work part, and that would be cheaper for the organization. It would be, giving somebody that skill set, which can be good. So I like that, Jodi. That's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, can I bring up one more example that you actually
brought
up? The time sensitive one. That one seems to always get me. It's like my second choice, of course, ask me for an earlier meeting, or ask me like before what I would rather do, or like, I like time sensitivity is a big thing. It seems like. Yep. Nothing falls into place.
And by that, do you mean, for example, I mean, one of the things that I find is, when people ask you for more, they say yes, they ask you and you say yes, right? It's all these additional, like, which ones are the most priority ones? And it's certainly fine to say, when somebody brings on an extra task for you, or a timeline, hey, there's this extra, role that is really time critical, it's or there's an extra task that I really need you to do. This is a whatever, high priority for us, whatever. And you, before saying yes, and maybe what you say is, if you'd be willing to do it, but you have other things that right now are also priority that they've given you in the past. That's what I see happening, where it's like, well, which one's the most important? So there's nothing wrong with going back to the person to say, don't responding, well, goodness, I'd love to help out with this. I do have 2 other projects that are high priority right now. This and this, whatever. Which of these would you want me to exchange with this current high priority one? To say to them, basically, you can't do 3 things at once, right? You have, you can't do everything at once. So something has to be done before the rest. And so getting from them, what's the clarification? Because sometimes they forget that, oh yeah, I've already tasked you with that, this, that, the other. Oh my gosh, you're already really busy. I should ask somebody else. Great, problem solved, right? Or, oh, okay, well, you know what? I guess this one can wait and this one could be the priority. Like, great, then you're not doing more than you would have, but you're just reorganizing the order at which you're doing. Does that at all cover it? And I know you were talking about, I think, something else in part 2, the earlier meeting, the later meeting, whatever.
Yeah, no, that does answer it. Yeah, I like the concept of like, which one is a priority.
Which is your highest priority? It's giving them the opportunity, to say which one is most important for them, right? Yep, absolutely. And that would really be the answer to that first one oftentimes, right? How do they give you this additional big task before a big project you're already fully immersed in, and and you have these competing deadlines and such. How they've assigned you, how do you politely address that? By pointing out, say, I'm certainly willing to consider this opportunity or this project. And I'm kind of a fan of not saying but all the time, because but comes out like but, it's going to be negative. So, and I do have 2 other high priority tasks that have been assigned to me at the same, whatever time frame. Which of those would be your number one role for me, or number one priority for me to work on? And I'll get to the others immediately thereafter. That's perfectly fine. Yep. Great. Gosh, any of these other ones, the role plays that are listed here, we've kind of done one, but we've talked about number 5 to some degree, but any of the 2 through 5 that you'd want to really role play or talk about, we can just chat a little bit about how you might answer those. Take a moment to read them. And, the number 5 one, I'm going to finish that one up a little, because we did talk a little bit about job offers. And if you don't want a job, but you take it or whatever, right? You feel compelled to take it because it's a job offer, right? Sometimes you get a job offer and it's not the position that you want to say no to it, but it's really hard to say no to an opportunity, an employment opportunity, right? Especially in difficult, economic environments, things like that. You just feel like, wow, how do I say no to this? And if you decide that it's truly not for you and you listen to your gut and it's just not the opportunity for you, then you can certainly and should be honest with them and turn it down. Don't just, take it and then, leave within a month or, a couple weeks, whatever. I mean, obviously, if you decide to turn it down, you can do so in a professional way by saying something like, and usually it's a written, job, so it's a little easier than on the phone, right? But even if it's on the phone, right? If they come back and say, we'd like to extend you the opportunity of project coordinator for, whatever, when you reply, certainly saying thank you first, thanking them and honoring, the fact that they've picked you, right? Thank you so much for the, for extending this opportunity to me. It's, and then you might say, while I greatly respect your organization and the work that you're doing. Although, I in consideration or in considering my, opportunities, I am needing to at this point turn this one down, or, as you could give as much or as little as you want, right? You could just say, I do need to decline the offer at this point. In looking at my own career path and my, whatever I need to, turn this opportunity down, but I wish you the best with filling the position. If I can be of assistance in any way in the, future, please let me know, or perhaps our, paths will cross, that kind of thing, right? You can do something like that. I kind of went through a lot of options, if you will, but likewise, if you get, and this is not exactly related to this, but if you get rejected for a job, right? You wanted the job, but you got the rejection, always doing that, thank you for the rejection letter that I've talked about in different webinars too, where you reply and very professionally say something like, thank you for the opportunity, or thank you for letting me know regarding your selection decision for the project coordinator position at Chemonics. While disappointed to have not been chosen, I wish you the very best with your select candidate. Should future opportunities occur, please keep me posted as I remain dedicated to the mission, whatever, something like that. Because you know what happens? Sometimes people don't always take those jobs, right? Their first candidate might turn it down. For whatever reason, they might not clear the background check. Lots of different things can happen. So, by doing that, you can be their second choice. Like, oh my gosh, that's so professional. They came back and wrote this whole and have indicated they remain very, committed. And many times when you're down to the top 2, it's hard to pick. It's kind of a crap shot sometimes, or it's very hard to pick. So they're obviously very interested in you if you made it to the top 2. So that's another idea kind of related to that. So any other questions or comments on the role plays that are listed here on this page that are outlined here? We're time flies. We're getting to the end of our session too, but I want to certainly remain open to any questions that you might have from today's webinar on, on learning how to say no, right? Mastering the art of saying no, or, on anything related. So happy to be here. And if there's any final questions, you certainly can just unmute and ask them. That's fine. Or put them in the chat box.
I don't have any other questions. This was great. Thanks, Jodi.
Okay, Jodi, thanks so much for participating, and we'll hope to see you at some of the future events. I don't know if you're already aware probably of the Peace Corps Connect conference that's taking place. That starts next week. There's going to be a lot of really good sessions. You can check out our website to hear more, to learn more about what's going to be covered, but there's some awesome sessions too. Most of them will be, I think it's next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, but.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, take care. And if you have any other ideas for webinars, let me know as well. But just shoot me an email, because we're always looking to expand and have additional ones. So that's great.
Sounds
okay.
Good. Thanks.
Bye. All right. Thanks so much. Have a great day.